Good morning, Mary, and welcome to Conflict Managed.
Hi, Mary. It's so great to be here.
I'm really excited for our conversation today and to talk about your fabulous book and everything that you're up to. But before we get to all of that, I would like to hear about the first job you ever had as a young person.
Woo! Oh my gosh, such a great question. My first job was selling advertising and subscriptions for the local daily newspaper in high school.
Wow. How did you fall into that?
I was always interested in media,
Mhm.
and my dad was in advertising, and he said, "You know what? They have openings. There's openings at the local paper to sell subscriptions." So literally would go after skating, after school, and go work there for a couple hours a week. It was really fun.
What did you enjoy about it?
I really liked the idea that I was, suddenly quote unquote working in media, right? Like
Mm.
my dad. So that felt very exciting. But also, I loved the idea that I got to talk to people all day long.
That's interesting. A lot of times, I mean, there are all different sorts of responses to what people enjoy about their first jobs or what was difficult about them. But just your response about working in the field that your dad's working in, and that you got to talk to people, and so you've got this career, a lifelong career of talking with people. It's interesting how that can happen sometimes. That those threads pull all the way through our careers. So, where did you go after selling advertising?
After selling advertising, I went to college and studied actually broadcast communications and public relations.
And what did you plan to do with that?
I actually did what I had planned to do for a little while, Mary.
Hmm.
So I actually was the anchor for the, school TV station at the time, and then went straight from undergrad into working at a TV station. I worked for a cable station up in the Chicago area and loved it, but didn't make very much money. So I was reporting the news, teaching aerobics, and working at the clinique counter at Lord and Taylor, and I could barely pay my bills.
Oh my goodness.
That is when my first pivot happened.
That is, it's interesting. You go through your education. You this is the goal you want to do, and then you realize, but I also want to be gainfully employed enough so that I don't have to spend all of my waking hours working. Was that tough when you realized I'm just not going to be able to financially sustain this, and I need to do something else?
What I realized was that as a newscaster, I would have to move from small market to small market to get to where I wanted to be. And my next job offer was in Wausau, Wisconsin. Beautiful place, very beautiful place, but I was dating somebody in Chicago at the time and really didn't want to move from small market to small market. So I actually fell. I always love to say this, and it's in my book. If you're open to the opportunities, you can fall into all kinds of different opportunities. And I went to go interview at a local search firm for a job at an ad agency, which I did not get. I was the first runner up there. But what did end up happening is they saw something in me, and
Mhm.
the owner of that search firm said, "Why don't you take your interviewing skills and put them in a different direction? You're already curious about people. You interview people for a living. How about interview them for jobs?" So that was
That-
my first pivot.
yeah, that's so interesting. And so when you decided that you didn't want to move for a variety of reasons and you started looking elsewhere, I think one thing that stops people from looking elsewhere is they think, well, I'm not moving for whatever reason, and there isn't anything else around here. I mean, that's what stopped me. I taught philosophy for a very long time and in a small town. And when I saw I wanted to do something else, I'm like, yeah, but what does an out of work philosopher do in a small town in Northwest Tennessee? Not much. And that stopped me, my lack of imagination of thinking about, you know, these pivots. Else can I do with my career set and skills, and what else is there if I'm just narrowly looking at this one thing?
Yes, yes. And that's what I do in my book too, is I urge people to kind of take off their blinders, right? We can be, running a race and winning this race like a, beautiful racehorse, but we could have blinders on. And if we don't take off those blinders and look around to see what other opportunities are around us, we are going to stay on that same path and we start to feel lost
Mhm.
because you don't see the opportunities that could be just right around the corner for you.
So let's go ahead and talk about your book. What lights you up? Illuminate your path and take the next big step in your career. So tell us about this lovely book. It's gotten lots of praise and a bestseller. What inspired you to write it, and what is the heart of the book for you?
Oh gosh, it has been the whole book is all heart and all hope and direction and actionable tools for people to use. But the impetus for the book was that I had created a 10-step pivot program about 12 years ago to help people do exactly what we're talking about, move from something that maybe they loved, but they lost their job or they weren't feeling fulfilled anymore. So how did these people who, step out of the workforce for whatever reason, they were feeling so lost? So as my background is in also recruiting, as we talked about, and I thought, well, gosh, I can create a program for these people to help them get to where they want to go. And the program became so successful that we had a very long waiting list for it. And what I realize and what I know is that people who want new jobs can't wait. They
Right.
want to get started yesterday
Right.
to start looking for a job. And so that's when I started writing the book.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, we find ourselves for a variety of reasons needing to pivot, right? It could be, as you had mentioned, you just find that this doesn't hold the joy or the excitement or the fulfillment and so you're looking for something else, or you get fired, the job market shifts, you have to move, or whatever is happening, and then what next? It can feel so overwhelming. I think almost in particular today because it can feel maddening, like with all of the books and all of the resources online that there's got to be stuff out there, but it can be so hard to find it or find something that resonates with you. As you said, practical, actionable steps of how do I make that change? How do I find the next for me?
Yes. And so much of it comes from your network.
Mm.
Because what happens now, Mary, is the job market is cluttered and loud, and there's so many different directions that people can look, but then they feel like they're, putting their resume into the black hole of, a resume database or of some online, career site. And so I always say, yes, do that. Of
Mhm.
course,
Mhm.
absolutely. Check that box, but also lean into your network. Start talking to the people around you. And those are typically the people who you already know and admire who could lead you to your next job.
Yeah, absolutely. Networking. So I was in academia for ever so long, and at least in my field, not a ton of networking. And so I didn't think I really understood what networking was or that I was already doing it, right? I had a very narrow vision of network is for corporate life. But the more that I'm in the space of conflict management and healthy work environments, um, the time to have a robust network is right now when things are going well, when you are enjoying your job, when there isn't a big problem, really building that network. And the network is not usury, but it's, I think, a part of being a good colleague and being a helpful person. People want to help us and we want to help them. And how can I share what I know if I don't know you or don't know you need it, and vice versa? So can you talk a little bit about, maybe seeing the virtues of why to network right now and maybe some tips of how to build that network?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right there, Mary. And it is having a network even when you're happy in the role that you're in, because you don't know what these genuine human connections can lead to. I mean, they might lead to a new client, they might lead to a new job, right? But it can be anything in between. And I think what people forget about is they feel, especially for the introverts, they feel networking is a lot, it's a little bit daunting, and it feels fake. Well, if you can network in a genuine human connection sort of way, if you can network with people around you organically and lean in and say exactly what you said, how can we help each other?
Mhm.
That's where the magic happens. And I do tell my clients, LinkedIn is very powerful. Um, Academia, yes, you're out there on it, but you're right, absolutely. For the business world, LinkedIn is super, super powerful. So if you are in a business related profession, you should be spending an hour on LinkedIn every day looking at your news feed,
Mm.
following the companies that you are interested in potentially talking to or potentially working for, following the people that inspire you, and connecting with everybody from professors to family, friends of family, and things like that. You just never know where your next job or your next opportunity is going to come from.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. When I look over my career, I can see why I got what I got by who I knew, and they seem, these relationships that just sort of pop up, but um, so much of, I mean, sometimes it's just from the black hole, a resume appears, and there is obviously that happens, but a lot, especially in the career that I'm in now, I can trace almost every client because of somebody who was sitting in something that I was doing, or somebody knew somebody else and then recommended. Um, in my field where I deal with really precious and difficult problems that people are having and they hold so dear, they're not going to just share that or reach out to anybody. So how do you build those relationships? And I like that advice for the person who is reticent because maybe they are an introvert. If you think about it as what value can I authentically add in this organic way? Because that's what would be sustainable. And if what's good, what I can do right now, if I'm in a good place, what can I give back? So that you are consciously mentoring or reaching out or sharing resources so that if the market recedes or if you lose your job or if you decide that you need to do something else, you have built. And all those people that you helped, they want to help you. We really do want to help each other. And we're so excited. I'm so excited when I actually have something that I think, oh, this person would, even if it's a small, this article might help this person or this connection, or I want to make sure these people know each other. There's this joy, not only professionally, but of course, humanly, of these connections that we make.
Absolutely. And how lucky are the people who have you in their network, because it does bring you so much joy. And that's the whole idea. It lights you up, right? To actually help people. And I would say that is human nature. I mean, we are kind of wired to want to help each other.
Mhm,
And I think that, that for those who are uncomfortable with asking for help, ask instead, how can I help you?
mhm,
Flip the narrative so that it feels more comfortable for you, because asking for help is uncomfortable
mhm,
for all of us most of the
mhm,
time.
mhm. Yeah, I agree. And it's so interesting that we want to help others and yet we're reticent to say it to ourselves. And but I really think that is such a power move. When people come to me, so I recently taken on another role. I'm at the university ombuds here at my local university at UT Martin. And when somebody comes to my office or they reach out because there is an issue, I think, what a strong person. I think this person recognizes this as a problem and they're doing something about it.
Yes,
When people reach out and then solve it or find whatever works for them, I mean, it's like win, win, win all the way around because they benefit, their colleagues benefit, the organization benefits, and their social capital goes up, their confidence in themselves goes up. All of these good things when we reach out for help.
exactly. And it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage to ask for help, right?
Mhm.
And to kind of break down those walls of like, never let them see you sweat. Well, you know what? We want to see you sweat. We want to help you. If you're sweating, we want to make sure that we give you the right deodorant. I mean, it's really important that we can lean in and help each other. And I think that, dovetails right into, what happens in organizations too. It's these open lines of communication that are so, so important, right? If you're struggling in the workplace or if you're struggling in life and you're not telling anybody, you're not asking for help, that can create a really, really toxic situation
Mhm,
because you start to get resentful, you start to get overwhelmed, potentially burned out. And really, all it would take is to, go into your manager or a trusted, friend within the organization and say, I'm struggling. I need help.
mhm,
And probably people will band around you and help you through whatever the situation it is.
mhm. Absolutely. You're gonna most likely find that help. And if you don't find that help, that is an answer, right?
Yes.
That is telling you really good information about, okay, this place really isn't for me. What is my exit strategy? What is going to be the next? Because I've tried here. As you were talking, a lot of times I think about conflict management as preventative health care. If you deal with it here, then you're not going to have these bigger toxic problems down the line. And when we're having a physical problem, right, our arm is dangling, we think it might be broken, I say, oh, well, it's broken, but there is such a thing as medical denial, right? People, if they see something going on with their body, they don't want to, or they see something on their shoulder, and they don't want to admit, oh, this could be cancer, or this could be a problem, so I don't go in. But we know the longer you wait, then in order to treat it, to get back to baseline or to get to health, it might be more and more extreme. And I think it's the same way with our careers and certainly with conflict. If we practice magical thinking, I just don't look at it and it goes away, or everyone should just be an adult here so they will stop that behavior, it tends to get worse and it spreads.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's so important for people at all levels to hear is, nip it at the root, right?
Mhm,
I mean, start if you're feeling off, if you're feeling like something's not right, do something. Do something to change it. Ask for help. Try to find a solution. And a lot of times also leaders want their people to bring solutions to the table.
mhm.
So even before you ask for help, you could just look at a couple different solutions that could be applicable and then bring that to your boss and say, here's where I'm struggling, but here's what I think we can do about it. And
Yeah,
if you're really struggling and don't know, that's okay too.
right.
But definitely try to look around and say, okay, how could I solve this with a little help from the people around me?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's depending on how deep you are in, right? How much you've kind of let it go and it just catches up on you. I mean, you could ask a large language model, not that I would take that as, gospel truth, but it can maybe help your creative juices. You can Google it. If you have a health plan, you can see a physician or a psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever your health plans allow for, to get that direction. And I find that a part of the battle of the change is that ask, right? Once I admit there's a problem, once I admit I do need some help, I'm that admitting is a kind of turning towards opening up the possibility of I need to do something different. This is not sustainable. I am not happy, or whatever is going on, that change.
Yes. And when you hold it in, you're carrying that whole burden on your own.
Hmm.
And I find that, when we advise people to go for help or, ask for help and open up that channel, they feel so relieved.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
They really do. They were holding it all on their shoulders, holding it all on their own. Well, that is so much pressure and takes so much energy. When you open up and ask for help from another human being, then you're sharing the burden. It feels lighter.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't take that time. Really make sure that you're, you know, able to do that. in an early stage.
Yes, the early, and as you know, the title of your book, What Lights You Up, when I think about conflict, I think about many times people are lost in the forest. And so they can't see what's going on because it is dark and small um, and uncontained. There's just, they don't know what's going on. And so they have become dim, and therefore their choices are harder to see. And so we tell ourselves a very narrow narrative about what needs to happen, such as this person needs to change or be fired or get on their knees and apologize and do all these things in order for me to breathe again. Um, so when people have been dimmed or they've lost that spark or they don't know what lights them up, how
Mm.
do they move on from there?
It's, we're talking about that echo chamber, right? Or the tunnel vision that they get, or the blinders that I was talking about with a racehorse. So the first thing is paying attention. And when I say pay attention to the moments in your day where you feel in the flow, where you feel a sense of happiness, and start to track those. We call it in the book, creating a light log, those moments in the day that light you up. But, start to think about that. And then over the matter of weeks, you're going to start to see patterns of what it is that's making you happy and what it is that's giving you joy in your day. And then start to think about, okay, well, how do I do more of that? And even in a job, there's so many organizations that will help you design a role that fits your natural gifts and skill set within the confines of the company, of course. But, it's okay to lean in towards where your natural gifts are and then surround yourself with the people who can complement those gifts and bring other skills to the table.
Think that's so brilliant because I could imagine somebody thinking, listening to this, well, if I knew what this next thing was, I would just do it. But I don't know, and I'm overwhelmed, and how am I supposed to find this? But I mean, that's so doable. Okay, well, what today? What was it?
Yeah.
And then what is it tomorrow? And then once you start asking yourself that question, you start to, as you said, notice and listen and pay attention. And so much of our healthy work environments or our careers is what we're paying attention to. What voices are we listening to? What are we? And so we tend to find what we're looking for. So if we're looking for hyperbole here, but death and destruction, everything is falling apart and on fire. Well, that's what we're going to see. And that's where we're going to be living. And if we start looking at, well, what are those peeps of light through the trees? And that can chart our roadmap of our imagination and seeing what it is that we want and where it is we want to go.
Yes, and you're a professor, right? And we, in higher ed, we love Venn diagrams. And my favorite Venn diagram is what is called ikigai. Have you heard of that word, Mary?
Mm-mm.
Okay, you're gonna be blown away. Everybody listening, just write this down, look it up. But it's the Japanese word that means your reason for being.
Mm,
And what it is, it's the intersection of what you're good at, what you love to do, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for.
mm,
So that is a sweet spot, right? If you're
yeah,
actually doing what you love to do, what you're good at, what the world needs, and you're getting paid for it, oh my God, blown away.
right.
So I really encourage people to lean into that ikigai and look for, okay, here's what I'm good at. Well, does it give me joy? If it gives me joy and I'm good at it, usually when people are good at things, they enjoy doing it because it gives them a sense of, purpose, but also into that greater sense of purpose, that mission driven of what does the world need? How can I show up with my natural gifts and skill sets and give something back to the world? Oh, and I get to get paid for it too? Bonus.
Right, absolutely. Oh, that's great. That's really, you can just see it laid out, right? I love a Venn diagram as well.
Yes.
So one thing that I find is, people think they're going into their dream job, it's their dream profession, and it's not. And it's not the work, it's the structure, the environment, the people, one or all of the above. And so they find themselves in a difficult situation. Actually, maybe I want to back up just a little bit before we get to these difficult situations. I want to hear about you and as your younger self, how did you deal with conflict? Right? Conflict is normal. We're going to have it. Um, how did you think about conflict in the workplace and how did you address conflict?
I love this question because I am the sixth child of seven kids. I came from a blended family and I was the peacemaker.
Mm,
So I was very conflict averse in my younger years until I learned the hard way
mm,
that if you don't, look at it, I mean, but like address it immediately, then it gets worse,
mhm,
right? So I think it's really interesting for those of us who are peacemakers or people pleasers or have those tendencies to deal with conflict. But what you teach and what we talk about in business is that there is such thing as healthy conflict
mhm,
and that healthy conflict is okay. It's okay to have a difference of opinion. It's okay to look at the world in a different way, but lean in with curiosity and try to find a middle ground and try to find that common ground. And I think when I started looking at things as a younger executive with that idea of what is it, why is this person doing what they're doing? What happened in their childhood to make them, do that, which a lot of this stems from our childhood, right?
mhm,
Once you could kind of understand the motivations and the reasons why somebody was doing something, it was much easier to give them grace and have empathy around the situation and then kind of really approach it from the idea that you want to have a mutual understanding and that you both want to win.
mhm.
Especially in the workforce, you're working for the
Right.
same company. Let's hope that you both want to win and you want to help the company win.
I absolutely agree. I love curiosity. Win, win, win. That's what we really want, or we're all going to be losing. And and yet, this lack of courage to have courageous conversations. I mean, I can imagine somebody saying, it's not so much a lack of courage, is that I want to stay gainfully employed. I want to be able to pay my mortgage. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to lose,
Yes.
this. And so I'm not willing to say this to this person or get involved in this situation because I don't trust them. I don't think that, I think they're just for themselves. All these narratives, whether they're true or not, but that we do tell ourselves and keep us from having the conversations that need to be had. And so, I mean, in our whole culture is an ode to win-lose. Like when we think about how much we love sports, I know that it goes in and out of sometimes the rules will be changed. So I think, what is it, like in pro football, they can now tie or something. I don't know. I personally love a tie. I think at the end of a game, if the score is even, that means on that day they tied. That's
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
think. But we are so like winners, losers, who's making more, who's got this, who's got many followers, and it's this whole game of who's winning and who's not. And so that's what our whole culture models. It doesn't really model a collaborative spirit,
Mhm.
even though of course we have all this innovation that ha only happened because of collaboration. But so how do you help people pivot from that mindset of it's me over you, a sort of scarcity, to this us together?
Right. And that's hard sometimes because you could be dealing with an insecure boss
Mhm,
who is roadblocking your progress or your growth. And so it's about looking at the whole playing field, where if we use the sports analogy, right? Looking at the whole playing field. And if you do have somebody who you feel like is standing in the way of your growth or your joy, then really start to look around and say, okay, who can I find as a mentor? Who can I find as a trusted source to talk through how to handle this person? Because we run into, I talked with my 15-year-old yesterday about a difficult teacher that he has right now. And I said, you know what, honey, you're going to have difficult bosses. So you need to learn now how to deal with this and how to make it work for you for the rest of the school year.
mhm.
So, you have a difficult boss. Look at other avenues for growth. Look at other people who can help you in the organization. And if there are none of those, then to your point from earlier, Mary, that might not be the right organization for you.
Mhm.
So that's when you start to look around and say, okay, I'm going to do what Mary says in her book, create a target list of companies that I want to start talking to. And that's when the networking, you kind of double down on it and you make yourself some goals for networking. I'm going to talk to 5 people in my network per week just to see what's going on outside of this organization.
Mm. I love that. We say the best time to find a job is when you have a job. So the more you can know yourself and know and not be the lobster in the boiling pot where you don't realize until it's too late. And the too late here is burnout, physical or psychological damage, like I can't take it anymore and I leave and now I'm unemployed. But the more you can understand yourself and understand that your career is your career, and if somebody is being an obstructionist, that's not the end of it. If they're telling you, I hold all the keys and it's my way or the highway, or I can ruin you, that is not true, right? And like, but we
Mhm.
need help, especially when most people are showing up to work. They're professionals. They want to do good work. And I think a lot of people who are maybe not, maybe even toxic bosses or really, really difficult people don't typically have that narrative of themselves. They think, this is how business gets done, right? If you don't yell at them, how are they going to know you're serious or whatever? So that disempowerment of, well, this is just the way it is, and I'm just going to wait for a new boss, it just it stops you in so many different ways because there are ways to manage up. There are workarounds by still being respectful, but figuring out what else, what next, and diffusing your own emotional response and protecting yourself
Mhm.
from somebody else's misbehavior or somebody else's being ill-equipped to manage. As we know, so many people become managers not because they're good at their people skills, but nonetheless, they're in this position and it is negatively impacting you.
Yes. And remember the growth mindset, which
Right.
most people are familiar with, but in a growth mindset, you look at the situation and you say, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
Right? How can I become a better human being, worker, coworker, whatever it is from this situation? And I will tell you, when you're in it, it is really hard, but I have learned so much from some of my worst bosses. Some of it's what not to do, but
Absolutely.
it's been a very, it's eye-opening when
Yeah.
you're that lobster in the pot, right?
Yeah.
And you don't feel like you have a way out. You are forced to get creative.
Yeah.
And it forces you outside of your comfort zone, which is sometimes a good thing.
Right. And well, none of us want to suffer. And, I have children too. I don't want them to suffer, but that is a part of life. You are going to have teachers that don't resonate with you, bosses who may even have a personality disorder or are actively gunning against you for whatever reason because they think that's in your interest. And tragedy is going to strike. These are the things that are going to happen. And so we talk a lot about resilience today, right? So developing resilience, I think, is being rooted in reality that the difficult times that not if they come, they will come. So how are you preparing yourself right now? Along with the joy and the wonder and all the wonderful things that life has to offer. And I think even in the mundane and the everyday can be imbued with beauty and joy and meaning. It's true. Laundry can have meaning, right? And all
Yeah.
of these things can be imbued with meaning, but that doesn't mean that we escape suffering. Nobody escapes. But the question is, what are we going to do with it? Recognizing it hurts, it is difficult, but by nature, we need each other, right? And so, again, back to, I think this is one of the themes of our conversations. If we have those structures, those supports, we can be that medicine to others, and then they can be it to us when we're in these tough situations.
Yes, yes, 100%. And, looking for, that going back to the light log or the joy log or whatever you choose to call it, but looking for those moments of joy and of purpose and satisfaction from every day, you're not going to have a day with none of that. You might have a day with very little of that, but what paying attention to what is it that, is giving me joy. And if you feel stuck in this job, start to create a plan. It might not happen overnight, but you might have a passion that you can turn into a side hustle, that you can turn into a profession. I mean, coaching was something that I did organically while I was recruiting. But what I found was that I loved helping people just be better at what they did and find their joy and everything else. So I, kind of started leaning more towards the coaching after many, many years in recruiting. So I could, call that kind of my little side hustle that has turned into a full-time job. So there's hope out there. It's about paying attention to what it is that lights you up on a daily basis, but also then creating a plan around it. And that plan might take a while.
Mhm.
You have to accept that too. It could be, a year, it could be 5 years. But as long as you know you're moving forward, then you have hope.
Mm. I love that because I think a lot of times when people feel stuck or they feel disempowered or they feel like they're in a toxic environment, it can just feel so deadening. And so this is all there is.
Yeah.
And if you tell yourself this is all there is and this is my fate, well, that's what you're going to get. That will be your fate and that will be all there is. And so this idea of hope, how do we find hope? How do we get the confidence to pursue? It is just this shift. And I love the light lock. It just can be, especially when it's really difficult. What
Hmm.
is the thing? What
Yeah.
is the little thing? And how can you have more of that? Or how can you build on that? And where do you want to be in 5 years? If you don't have that vision, you're not going to get there. I write books as well, and people, every once in a while, a lot of people are writers, and they'll say, "Oh, I have this idea of writing a book," and I'll say, "Well, how are you doing it?" "Well, I'm just thinking about it." I say, "Okay." Somebody else, and I think, well, the way to write a book is to write a book, right? Like you've got to decide, okay, I'm going to write this book, and now I'm going to make a plan, and however long it's going to take me, depending on myself and how I write and the subject, if it's going to take me a year or 5 years, okay, if I want to be done in 3 years, what am I going to have to do each year to get that goal? And then what am I going to have to do in this year? And then all of a sudden, you have a plan and you're a writer and you're writing a book. But
Yes.
just I want to write a book or I want to open a woodworking shop or I want to be a coach, if it's just this nebulous, I want to, but I haven't now sat down and tried to really imagine and envision, does this sit with my gifts? And if so, what's the path forward?
Yes. And when you believe in it,
Hmm.
if you are driven to write a book, don't let the rejections get you down either,
Yeah.
because writing a book is an arduous process in itself. But then, talking to publishers and having somebody who wants to publish your book, all of those things are, you know, little speed bumps potentially along the way. So keep your eyes on, I don't want to say the prize, right? But keep your eyes on the dream
Hmm.
and don't let things get in the way of that dream. And the way to do that is with that plan and also to do some outcome framing, right? What is my dream? Okay, my dream is to have a best-selling book. To your point, Mary, what are the things that I need to do along the way that are going to help get me there? And then you can kind of back into it. And then it doesn't feel so daunting.
Right, absolutely. And back to the Venn diagram, I can imagine, somebody thinking, oh, don't let a young person listen to this podcast because we don't want them just to, this idea, follow your dream. And that can be bad advice if it doesn't, if your dream, I remember in the early days of American Idol, I would watch all the time and somebody's dream is to be a singer and then they sing and they can't carry a tune. It's like, oh, I know that's your dream, but I wish it wasn't a different dream because
Yeah.
you just don't really have that skill and that can be developed. But if you're tone deaf, probably not. Right. And
Right.
so you sometimes you just so want somebody their vision for themselves to meet all of those categories that it is something that the world wants. If you want to open a travel agency where you are simply Googling for people, probably, there are travel agents today, you're going to work in an organization or there are ways to do that, right?
Mhm.
But, is it something that people want? Do you have the skill? Is it going to make money? Was there one more?
And are you finding joy?
Are you
So
finding
your
joy?
natural,
Right.
yeah, your natural gifts, your skills, your happiness and your joy. And then, is there a purpose in the world? Is it solving a problem in the world?
Mm,
And what's so interesting is I spoke at this conference maybe last year, and there was a professor who basically was saying that by the year, and don't quote me on these exact numbers, but just follow me with the concept. By the year 2035, most jobs haven't even been invented yet. So he was urging, and I'm sure you do with all of the work that you do, look for what the world needs
mm,
and then look at what are the natural gifts? What is my skill set? And is there a way that I can create something, maybe
mm,
create something new that the world needs that also gives me joy
mm.
and that I can charge for or make some money
I
doing?
love that. And I would say that no matter what the jobs in the future are, one thing that will always be needed are the so-called soft skills. How
Mhm.
are your people skills? How are you an asset to the team by your work ethic, your collegiality, your ability to solve problems, your ability to be what does that look like in your field and what does it just look like to show up and be reliable and be articulate and be, all of those sorts of things, no matter what happens in, 10, 15, 50 years, the world will still be populated by humans.
Yes,
And we, what really matters when we think about our past jobs, when we think about our professional reputation, there are these hard, like I did this, like these particular outcomes, but your network and people speaking up for you and advocating for you is because how it feels to be around you, how
yes,
you get things done because of those values that you embody and that you can be trusted, that you're a trusted colleague.
yes. And that is something that AI cannot take away from us.
Right.
I mean, AI can do a lot, and we should be leaning into it and using it in ways that make our lives easier. But don't be afraid of it. Don't think that it will take away all those things that you just talked about. Those
Yeah.
are what differentiates us as human beings.
Right. I mean, and even that you can ask AI, you can role play with it, right?
Yes.
And if that's the thing about AI and the world today. If you want to get better at something, you can find it out, and it doesn't take too much elbow grease. If you need to have a difficult conversation and you, for whatever reason, there's not a live person that you can reach out to, you can role play in the mirror or role play with the AI. And if you don't like their answers, try it again, try it again. I think that's one of the fun things about AI is it's like, no, I don't like this response. Why did you tell me this? And having a conversation of like, well, what I know is the case and what you're giving me, and that developing those critical thinking skills, no matter what medium you're using or what you're developing in yourself.
Yes, great advice. And there's one out there, Sesame AI, that has Miles and Maya. And a lot of our younger people that are in our coaching programs, we will say use them for your interview prep,
Mm.
right? When you're, going into a tough meeting or a tough interview or something like that, you can choose Miles or Maya. Do I want, somebody who's going to be tough on me, or do I want somebody who's going to be a little softer? But they're really great to riff off of and to practice.
Oh,
It's a lot of fun.
that's a great resource. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So, speaking about younger generations, I am just finishing a book right now about generations at work. When you when you think about the younger professionals that you're coaching and that you see, and the more seasoned professionals, and you think about their interaction, is there a particular thing that stands out about something that they have conflict over?
Such a great question. I bet you can answer that better than me,
Well,
but I'll try. I think that truly there's so much that we can learn from each generation. And that's what I keep saying to people is, the young kids that are coming up have never been without technology. Now, the people that are the generation right above you and I never really had technology. So everything was built on relationships and what they can do. So let's learn from each other. Take a young person out to lunch or take an older person out to lunch or really try to figure out what is it that I can learn from you and what can you learn from me. There's so much.
Yeah.
And if these generations just kind of take away those biases, then you see the wisdom in each generation. I mean, I think that the generations that are coming after us have a much better idea of life balance than I did as a Gen X.
Yeah.
So always something to learn, and I'm learning something new from the young people I work with, the older people I work with, those that have, even retired, and my kids.
Right. Well, that's basically my book. So Mary summed it up. Yeah, that is,
Oh,
yeah, I'm so interested in dialogue and not giving into these weird stereotypes that, I mean, stereotypes, there's something maybe to them, but okay, what's next? How can we learn? It's that growth mindset, that um how do we be a good community, right? So when I think about a work environment or in my profession, how am I a good practitioner? How am I a good colleague? How am I a good community member? Instead of, I'm not fond of family member language because family is fraught, but this community. So how can I be a good community member? And a lot of that is, again, sharing from my perspective. That means wanting to hear other people's perspective and where they are generationally. I mean, what a waste. What an absolute waste to write people off because of a generation they happen to be in.
yes. And you're absolutely right. Stereotypes are there for a reason, but let's get past the label,
Mhm.
right? There's so much more to every individual than just a label. So look past the label. Look past whatever facade is tripping you up in not getting curious about this person
Yes. Yeah.
and really saying, okay, wow, I want to know more about this person. I want to know what motivates them, what inspires them, and why.
Yeah. Yeah. What did they see? What is their
Mhm.
experience and what can I learn? And how can that help our team, our business move forward? Because most businesses serve the demographics, like everybody who's there, right? And so the more we can understand, the more information we have, the better decisions, of course, that we make that benefit everybody.
Exactly. Exactly. That growth mindset. Here we are again.
Yes, absolutely. So my last question for you, Mary, is as you look into the future of work, what do you think needs to happen so that not only will people be treated with dignity and respect, which is just baseline, but that
Mhm.
people will thrive and flourish?
I really think that I'm gonna go back to the young people for a moment because I think that what I would love to see from all ages and all levels is to do do what gives you joy. And I think that it's interesting because many of us, all of us, at some point have done things because we feel like we should, or we know that we need to. Okay, kind of get rid of that and say, what do I get to do every day? What do I get to do every morning, when I wake up? What is it that is going to give me that sweet spot of ikigai? What is going to, help me tap into not only what I'm good at, but what the world needs, and then make money. So really, really, when you're looking, and so many of us, but I remember many parents, be a doctor, be a lawyer, do this, do that. Well, and then those doctors and lawyers followed that path and woke up when they were 45 and said, "Oh, this isn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a marine biologist." If you are feeling that in your heart, if you are feeling that nagging feeling inside that, or even that quiet whisper that you want to be a marine biologist, be a marine biologist instead of going down the path of somebody else's dreams for you.
Yeah. I love that. Following that voice, listening to it, whether it's shouting at you or whispering, again, back to this knowing yourself, being in tune. It is your life. It isn't your parents' or somebody else's. And so the best that you can be for yourself and your community is to be yourself. What is that intuition? What is that guide? And sometimes it's not clear, but that's okay. So then we just might take practice and have to be reflective, and maybe we need some help figuring it out.
Yeah. And whatever that means, read my book, read your book, do some meditation, go for a run, whatever that is that clears your mind and helps you get closer to your center so that you can hear your own voice. Because there's a lot of voices out there.
Yes.
And yes, you should listen to some of them, maybe not all of them, but to thine own self be true.
Wonderful. Well, we'll end on that. Mary, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was great to be here, Mary. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll take care. Mary, thank you so much for being on Conflict Managed. I really enjoyed our conversation and I love your book. I'm looking forward to reading it. And I wish I had read it 5 years ago. The book, What Lights You Up? Illuminate Your Path and Take the Next Big Step in Your Career. That's what it's called. It's out now. It's a bestseller, and I know that you will love it. She has so much to share with us. So, Mary, thank you for your time and for writing this book. Conflict Managed is produced by Third Party Workplace Conflict Restoration Services and hosted by me, Mary Brown. You can find us online at 3pconflictrestoration.com. Come back. We have new episodes every Tuesday. And if you would please like and subscribe wherever you're listening or watching this podcast, it'd be much appreciated. Our music is courtesy of Dove Pilot. And remember, conflict is normal and expected. Let's deal with it. Until next time, take care.